Hey, welcome back, everyone. For those of you listening when this first comes out, we're in National Police Week, and May 15th was National Peace Officer Memorial Day. So thank you to all the police officers, deputy sheriffs, all the law enforcement officers out there that are not only keeping my family safe, but the rest of us safe. We thank you and we appreciate you. I'm fortunate to have been one of you. Now that I'm retired, I wish you all the best in the remainder of your careers. So with that, let's move into this. Let's get into round 20 of the tactical transition tips. This time, for my close range group, those of you who are looking at transition right away, at least less than a year out, find a new hobby. And for the medium range group, those of you who've got a few years, but it's still less than 5, set clear goals. And for the long range group, those of you who've got at least 10, maybe even longer, maybe you're just starting your careers, develop a work-life balance.
When you transition out is try to model all of the good things, the discipline, the structure, that little bit of rigidity into your everyday life. And I think that that's a great way to make that transition happen, man.
Figuring out who you are, not what you did. It's not who you are. It's a piece, but it's not the whole you.
Take the time to invest in yourself because it means everything. You know? That's what the difference is. The difference is not just to collect a check. It's to live 25 years, 30, 40 years after you retire and pay it forward that way.
For my close range group, you need to develop new hobbies or a new hobby. You're closing in on a very significant change in your life. Transition is, I hope, as smooth as possible for you. And I hope that you've prepared well for it, but it inevitably is going to be stressful. There are going to be a lot of things that are going to change in your life. I would say that developing a new hobby has 2 parts to it. One, it gives you something completely different to focus on and fixate on. If any of you are like me, when you pick up a new hobby, it can become almost life encompassing. I'm not suggesting that you go that far, but what I'm saying is, as you're approaching your transition, this clock's running out, having something new to focus on that is completely new will help take your mind off a lot of the stressful things. The other side is when you're going through your change, something that's new, something that maybe you have that hobby that you completely love. Where I'm going with this is maybe having that new thing that hasn't gotten old, or that maybe it's easy to kind of push it off to the back burner. That new thing that really sparks something in you will be that catalyst to really kind of not give it up when you're making your transition. So something new that gives you multiple facets to focus on. I would recommend really kind of sitting down and thinking about those things that you've always wanted to do and just haven't tried it for whatever reason. For me right now, I've always had an interest in learning to play the guitar, and it's really been creeping up a lot lately. Maybe it was going to Stagecoach and seeing all the performers, playing their guitars and stuff, but it's something I've been thinking about doing. And I myself need to take my own advice and maybe kind of start a new hobby. But I've got a lot of things going right now. Well, look at me making excuses. For you, you've got a lot on your horizon. And I think a new hobby would definitely be beneficial. Also, finding that hobby that is potentially a group activity is going to help you set in place your new tribe. Like it or not, when we leave these communities, yes, we will stay in contact with a few of the people that we know today. Likely, though, you're going to lose contact with a greater majority than those you stay in communication with. It's just a nature of the beast. If you happen to be that outlier, great. But I've already experienced it myself. I've already seen that I still communicate with less people, and it seems like each day that goes by, I'm communicating with less and less. So developing that new tribe now that's going to be that support system for you when you make your change, that you already have that group for when you're having those bad days or stressful days or whatever it is, they're already there. You're not in a position now to go look for that new group of people. Start small. You don't have to scale Mount Everest for a new hobby. Hey, if that's what you want to do, great, but maybe set a smaller mountain as your first goal. But what I'm getting at is it doesn't need to be some grandiose hobby. It could be cooking. It could be woodworking, whatever it is. But if you can incorporate it in a group setting, even better. Go to a cooking class. Imagine hanging out with a bunch of people who are likely not veterans and first responders, that if you can put your badge, your uniform, your ego aside and just hang out with a group of normal people who also want to learn how to cook, how cool would that be? Or, like I said, maybe you pick up an instrument. Maybe you start hanging out with that, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who gives you a new perspective on life because they're trying to learn an instrument also. It just exposes you to different groups and different environments. But like I said, start small. It doesn't have to be, something that is super expensive or super time consuming. It may eventually get there, but don't jump into it and go to that extreme to where that almost becomes more stressful for you. If you're picking up something new, be okay with sucking for a little while. Be the new guy. You're going to fail. You're going to stumble. The thing is don't quit. Evaluate after a few times if you're really enjoying it. If you're truly not enjoying it, where you thought, oh man, I'm going to like whatever it is. And I'm going to sound a little cliche here because I'm part of that group, but jiu-jitsu. I started it late in my career, and it has definitely become something that I truly enjoy doing, and I look forward to doing it each week, even now that I'm retired. But understand that, man, it is an ego killer, because there are going to be some people in those classes who are smaller than you, younger than you, faster than you, and it is what it is. But be okay with sucking for a little bit and just work your way through it. But don't give up on it. Keep going. Learning how to cope with setbacks of not being the best at something right away is actually going to have its benefits for when you make your transition. You're going to need to have those things that remind you that, hey, it's only a short period. I'll get through this. I'll be able to suffer a little bit and move out and pop out the other side and be a lot better for it. On the other side of it, yes, transitioning is going to be stressful. You need something that helps you cope with that stress, something that lets you and helps you take your mind off of all of it. That new hobby, that thing that excites you about going to do it, whatever it is. Start now and make it part of your routine. Get into the habit of, hey, every Wednesday I do it, every Saturday, whatever the schedule allows for you, but make a routine now. And don't give up that routine when you're going through your transition. Obviously, if you're forced to, work meetings, whatever, but that routine should become something to where it's harder, or it gets harder for you to miss it than to go. And what I mean by that is, for any of us who have done like working out or something like that, where it becomes part of your life, when you miss it, you feel worse than if you'd have just gone and muddled through it. So make that routine something that is part of you now and keep that going when you transition. If you're able to, try something that includes your entire family. Maybe it's something that you and your spouse have talked about wanting to do for a long time, but you just haven't done it. Don't wait until your transition to do it. Start doing it now. Find that hobby, that routine that you and your family can do together, you and your spouse, kayaking, hiking, whatever it is that you're already doing together, and get that routine, that habit in place. Maybe if you've got a young son, a young daughter, and there's been something that you two have wanted to do together or with your children, maybe you start doing that. But engage your family, make them part of something new with you, but that it's already in place when you make your transition. If by chance, whatever you want to get into does have a financial barrier, there is the basic cost. If you want to get into cycling, or if you want to get into archery or something, there's going to be a cost barrier. And some of those activities have a higher cost barrier just for the minimum amount of equipment. Why not get those purchases out of the way now when you have the chance? Maybe you pick up an extra overtime shift and you just say, hey, you know what? This extra money is going to go towards this. Get those costs out of your hair so that when you are in the transition, that's one less thing you got to worry about. And two, it's one less barrier when you're making your transition to getting involved in it. Closing it out, your transition is about you. It's about moving away from the uniform and getting back to just being you. And so developing a new hobby helps you focus on you and making sure that your transition redefines you as the person and allows you to put what you did as a career in the past, and hopefully utilize it when it's necessary, but not lean on it as much of a I used to be. What you want to be leaning on is, here's who I am today. And maybe that new hobby will help you get there. For the medium range group, set clear goals. You've got some time before you're going to make your transition. Granted, it might not be a long ways off, but it's at a point right now where it's easy to get into procrastination mode and kind of think, I'll deal with it tomorrow. But you need to be preparing for it right now, today. By not setting a clear goal as to really what you want to do when you leave these careers, it's going to allow you to, one, lack direction. It's going to allow you to procrastinate and put it off because you're not facing your transition. You're just thinking, oh, when I get there, I'll deal with it. And I'm telling you right now that that's not the best way to address your transition, because you're going to be thrusting into a complete whirlwind. Your life is going to be different. Whether you think it will or not, it's going to be different. Your routine is going to be different. The day-to-day of who you interact with and where you go and where you drive, all those little things are going to be different. And potentially, if they are able to upset your apple cart, it could have a detrimental effect on your overall mental health. So set clear goals now. Create that roadmap so that you know exactly how to get from A to B with the least amount of difficulty. You know, I'll use the analogy of Waze. Yeah, you might know how to get to where you're going, but if you fire up Waze and Waze says, hey, you might want to go this other way to avoid a traffic accident, it saves you time. Do the same thing with your transition planning. Create that mission plan for success so that you can easily follow it and not get off the path more than you need to. And you may deviate here and there, but it'll be easy to get right back on because you'll have a clear path of where you're needing to get to. It allows you to stay in control. By having a mission and a plan for you to get to, you create the urgency to be the best prepared for that, as opposed to if you're just kind of thinking of it, I'll deal with it when it comes. No, you're planning now for it, you're preparing for it now, so that when that time comes, everything operates seamlessly, everything operates smoothly. You operate without thinking about a lot of these things because they're already in place and you're not having to worry about them or if they're getting done. The other thing is you're giving yourself that confidence to be the best candidate for whatever job you're going for because you've been preparing for it. You've been putting all the pieces in place that you almost go into a hiring process and go, I'm the best one for the job. When do you want me to start? And that's a little egotistical and almost, if you could hear it in my voice, a little sarcastic. But you want that confidence in yourself to basically know that, yeah, I'm ready for this. And you need to understand, you being the company that's going to hire you, I'm the best, candidate for this position. So that confidence for you is going to be beneficial. Equally, by not preparing for it now, and you get to that transition and you start looking for a job and things aren't coming. But are they not coming because you're not the best prepared, or are they just not there? You might be in a position where you have to take a different job. Take that different job by choice, as opposed to, wow, I really wanted to do X, but I wasn't prepared for it. And now I've just got to settle for this other job and not be fulfilled or not be happy with it. Take a different job, not because of anything that you didn't do. Make having to take that, it's kind of like when you think of when people complain about a ref making a bad call in a game. And you'll often hear the analysts say, your play should not be controlled by one bad call from a ref. If everything else in your game is going well, that one bad call shouldn't, and I'm using an extreme overgeneralization here, shouldn't impact the outcome of the game. Where I'm going with you is that be prepared, or be as best prepared as possible for the job that you want, and understand that there might be the opportunity to not be able to get that job right away. So you can pivot because you want to, as opposed to you've applied and companies say, hey, thank you, but you're not the best qualified. With that, whatever you're going for, make sure you know that job inside and out. Don't assume that you know that particular job. Even though it could have the same job title, from company to company, there could be actual differences in what they require of the position. So don't not second guess. Don't short yourself by just assuming like, hey, I know about this job position, whatever it is, because I don't know what you want to do. Where I'm going with this, though, is don't be laxed in thinking that they're all the same, because they may not be the same. Every company may not treat that position the same way. So know the job you want, and equally know the company that you want to work for, and make sure you understand both aspects, how the company looks at that job and how that job interacts with that given company. I would strongly recommend that you make your family part of your goal planning. You could have all the dreams in the world of a job that you want to go to. What if it requires you to relocate? 1, do you want to relocate? 2, not only does your family want or not want to relocate, are they able to relocate? Do you have kids that are potentially, that senior year of high school? Do you want to do that to your son or daughter? These things that you need to be thinking about outside of you for the betterment of your entire family will help you when it comes time for your transition. Does your spouse have the ability to move with their job? Or does your spouse have a goal in mind for what they may want to do in their career at your transition? And maybe what you want to do is go with your spouse. So your spouse's job allows you and your family to relocate, which is what you all want to do. But maybe the job that you're thinking you want to do won't be available where you're going. So make that part of your planning. Make your family an integral part of your transition planning and what your goals are for when you make your transition. Get your support network in place. Get those people that you have that can be resources for you when you're making your transition. Ideally, they would be somebody who's working in the field that you want to work in, somebody who's got the experience of the specific job that you want. Preferably, if you can make connections within the company you want to get to. All of those people are going to have little tidbits of information for you when the time comes that is going to make your transition easier. For example, maybe there's a company that you know you want to work for. Maybe there's a job that you specifically know you want to work for. Maybe in your mind, oh, I've got 6 months until I transition, so you're thinking, I'm not going to apply today. Well, your friend who works for this company might know through connections, hey, the position is going to be coming open. Apply for it now. It might speed up your transition time, but at least you're aware of it. Those little things that will help you. The flip side, what if there's a company that you really want to work for, job that you really want, but that person who's in your network has some information, hey, that company might be being bought out, or hey man, we're having financial struggles. They're keeping it on the down low, but they're laying people off left and right. Something like that is better to know before you go into the process than, say, going through the application process, getting hired, and then having that stress of, hey, I was the last hired, so I'll be the first fired. All of those little things, by putting pieces in place now, will make that transition a lot smoother. Also, by having a clear goal in place, you're going to stay motivated. You're going to have that day-to-day goal of where you're trying to get to. What have I done today? What more do I need to do? How can I better prepare for tomorrow? It's going to save you a lot of wasted time because you're not focusing your research efforts in kind of like a shotgun pattern is the best way I can think about it. If you're not really focused on where you want to get to, but you know you need a job and you're just kind of like, well, let me look at this. Well, let me look at this. And nothing ever really comes to fruition because maybe there's a small aspect. Hey, I really like that. Oh, I don't think I'm qualified. And you move on because you don't really have anything set in place to help you guide. Hey, I need to get to this job. And whatever it is, define that now. Set those goals now so that when you get there, you've got everything in place. Additionally, maybe by looking now in that shotgun pattern and you look at multiple different jobs and you find out, well, wait a minute. I really was thinking I wanted to do this, but look at this job over here. Or like I was saying, maybe you get some information that the company that you want to work for tomorrow is going to move your position to another office, another city, another state, another country. Are you going to be able to move with that position? Or when it comes available, are you now dead in the water because it's no longer a job that's viable for you? Whether it be relocation, whether it be maybe that position's just no longer going to be available. Having all of that now, as opposed to finding that out or doing that research at your transition, is going to be more helpful to you and reduce your stress. I'll wrap this up by saying you should want to be excited about your transition. You shouldn't be going into it dreading it. Obviously, there could be a little bit of, man, I'm not looking forward to walking away from this career, but having that next thing that is exciting to you and the next new mission will definitely help you with that transition. For the long range group, you need to develop a work-life balance. I don't think this can be overstated enough. One of the things that I think that we all tend to do in these careers is we tend to make work the one thing that we don't want to give up. There's the fun aspect, I get it. There is the sense of not wanting to let our team down. All of those things are commendable. But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that we have boundaries in place now. Did I do this the best throughout my career? No. Could I have done it a lot better? Hell yes, I could have. And more often than not, the ones that suffered were my family. I would strongly recommend, if you're already going down this path, if you're spending a lot of time at work pulling overtime shifts, if you're spending a lot of time on deployment, always looking for the next deployment, you should really be looking at yourself from an inside out and finding out, what are you trying to stay away from? I honestly don't believe that you need to be at work that much. If there's a specific reason why you are, I hope that it's a short term and you just need to do it for a little while to get over X hurdle, whatever that hurdle is. But if you're just arbitrarily always being the first one to volunteer, maybe you need to look at, I'll loosely say, what are you running from or what are you trying to avoid? Something to think about. You should be thinking about needs versus wants, but not only of you, but needs and wants of your family. Yes, you have a responsibility to provide for your family. I'm not negating that in any way at all. But constantly being at work so that you can justify it by saying, well, I'm able to buy A, B, and C for my family. I think if you talk to especially your kids, they might want you there more than they want A, B, or C. So think about not just you, but what are the needs of your family? And are you taking away from your family by constantly being at work? From the flip side, if work is constantly calling on you first, are they calling on you because you're just the one that always says yes? Or are they calling on you because you're invaluable to their team? Well, then you need to be thinking, is there a way you can leverage it to get more out of it? I'm going to defer probably, though, that they're probably just calling on you because you're the one that always says yes. I don't really remember a situation in my career where somebody might have that level of expertise. I can think of like maybe an accident reconstruction specialist. Is if you have to work for a small organization and you're the one who's constantly being called, okay, then maybe you figure out a way to work with your bosses. Like, hey, you're calling me in 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe instead of some overtime, maybe I can take off 2 or 3 days in a row. Something like that. So it's a quid pro quo type thing. But I'm going to lean towards the fact that they're probably calling you just because they got a slot to fill and you're the one who always says yes. And then I go back to, if you're the one that always says yes, you need to evaluate what's your motivation and be honest with yourself. And why are you constantly trying to be at work? Please remember, these are just jobs. They're fun. They're great. I enjoyed my 30 plus years. But they're just jobs. And if you're already struggling with being off duty or off the clock when you're not at work, that should be an indicator also. You should be able to go to work, leave work at work, be at home, be present with your family at home. And if you're struggling with that, then talk to somebody. Talk to somebody who truly understands what you might be going through. It doesn't have to be another peer, but if you have somebody that you can confide in, then talk to them. But I would strongly recommend that if you don't have that ability now, or if you're struggling with that ability to feel, you may tell yourself, hey, I'm off duty, I'm off the clock, I'm good to go. But you'll know inside you if you're really off duty. And if you're struggling with that, I highly recommend that you talk to a professional. We all came to these jobs, even those of us who came into them very young. We had our friends that we grew up with, that we were doing things with, before we got these jobs. I can probably say that a large number of us lost many of those acquaintances when we got these jobs. Some of it is just by nature of life and growing up, and you're inevitably going to lose friends. I'll put myself in the category, though. I lost some because all of a sudden now they're like, ooh, you're law enforcement. So, okay, nothing I can do about that. But then I did lose some because I was the new guy and I was working weekend nights and they were working Monday through Friday and going out on Friday and Saturday nights. What I'm getting at is work on maintaining those relationships with people outside of our community. Work on keeping those relationships with the people who we call them, or what is society looks at as the normal people. Because really, for society, we're the abnormal ones. We're the ones that are up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're the ones that are deployed for 6 or 8 months at a time. We do the weird jobs. So we are the oddballs. Keep contact with those friends that keep you grounded with what is considered normal society. Equally, keep those hobbies that you were doing before you got this job. Those people that you associated with, they are a different mindset. They're a different way of helping you look at life differently. Don't insulate yourself with just people that you work with. It's not inherently a bad thing, but it does have the possibility of further alienating us from what is considered normal society. And when you make your transition and you're now back largely operating in normal society or trying to operate in the civilian world, you're going to be the oddball. So by working on keeping that balance now, it will be less of an issue when you make it to your transition. I would strongly encourage you to never stop challenging yourself to grow, whether it be in your education, in your relationships with both your family and your friends, in being a mentor on the job, being somebody who is well-rounded, being somebody that leads by example by showing others that, yes, I wear a uniform at work, but when I'm not at work, my family is as not, if more important, as my time away from them when I'm on the job. That my uniform is simply something that I put on when I go to work. And when I come home each day, I'm just Bob. I'm just Barbara. I'm just me. Be somebody who leads by example. I've already mentioned this a little bit, but really consider your mental health now. These jobs will eat us from the inside out if we allow it. If you find that you're already having issues right now and you're struggling a little bit, please go talk to somebody. Don't let it fester until it's too late and ruins your marriage, potentially ruins your career, but most importantly, just ruins you. These jobs aren't worth it. Take care of your mental health. We see some horrible things. It's okay to say that what I experienced didn't settle with me. I need to talk to somebody. This is an easy one. Maintain your physical health. I don't know what level you deem as physically healthy, but just maintain some sort of level of physical health. Be able to get to your transition and enjoy whatever you're going to do in your next career, in your next life, whatever it is, as opposed to being riddled with injuries and unable to enjoy yourself when you make it to your transition. I would also say that the more you let yourself deteriorate now, the more it's going to be a struggle to get to that transition, in the sense of just enjoying the work, enjoying what you're doing, looking forward to your transition. So it has a bigger impact on you. Whereas if you just maintain a limited level of fitness now, you'll be a lot better off. You have to define what that is for you. Don't judge yourself based on, the guy who's the CrossFit guy and works out, 4 hours a day. that might be his hobby and that or her hobby, and that's what they really enjoy doing. Maybe it's something that they do with their spouse. But what I'm getting at is, don't judge yourself by others. Judge yourself by you. Look at what you were when you came on the job and maybe try to be close to that and maybe try to be a little bit better. But you don't have to be what everybody else deems as physically fit. It's surprising how little you actually need to do on a daily basis to be in pretty decent shape. So, just my little soapbox. Last but most importantly, we are expendable. As much as we love these jobs and as much as at work they tell us, oh, you're part of the team, we need you, understand that we're expendable. And tomorrow, when we're gone, when the door closes behind us, we're going to be forgotten by 3/4 on the short end, probably close to 90%. And all the stuff that we did, somebody else will be able to do it. They're not jobs that are one-off that nobody else in this world can do. So when you're not working, remember that, and remember that you are just that same person that came into this job, and try to be that person, maybe a little bit better when you exit this job. So in closing, close range group, you need to find a new hobby. You need to be at your best when you transition. And having something new to fixate on might help with the stress of that transition because you're right around the corner. For the medium range group, set clear goals. Get to where you want to get to at your transition and do it as effortlessly or as easily as possible. And for the long range group, develop your work-life balance now. Don't let these careers destroy you. They're great at eating us alive if we let them. Thank you again for taking the time to listen. I hope you're enjoying these. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please share the podcast with anybody that you think might benefit from it. And I'll see you next time.